So when you've described the bill to Radio New Zealand, you said we have a big overstayer problem, but then you've also characterized these changes as small technical changes. If overstaying is such a big problem, why do we need just a small technical change to help address the situation? Because those two things seem to be contradictory.
Well, lots of little changes can end up making a big impact. This is just one thing that the compliance officers, when I've been out with them, are really frustrated about. So let me paint the picture. When I'll be going out with them, they will turn up, they're looking for this man, they know he's there, hello, nice to meet you. And they can see 3 other people who are hiding, or one guy that just jumped out the window and ran away. Right now, they can't even say to them, hello, what's your name? Because they don't have the reason, and ask them for their identity or their date of birth to check who they are, because the law is written in such a way that it says you'll get me the wording exactly right, they have to have reasonable cause to suspect that they are liable for deportation.
That's correct, yes.
So that's a really high bar. They have to know in advance who they are and that they're liable for deportation. Now, obviously, if they're hiding and running away and they haven't had a chance to ask them who they are, that's really impossible. So giving them the ability to say, and this good cause to suspect is well understood in case law. It's been tested many times. So having that good cause to suspect when they're on the course of their everyday duty, like those actions I've just described, and being able to ask them in the first instance verbally, what is your name and your date of birth, and then checking up on whether or not they do fall into that category, and then being able to take the reasonable steps that fall after that.
Just got a couple more questions on Clause 26. Deportations have already increased substantially over a little while. Is it your goal to use these powers to subsequently increase the number of deportations? And if not, do you have a goal to increase the number of deportations with this bill?
The purpose of this bill is to give the compliance officers the tools that they need when they're out on the job. They already have this tool in the Act, but it's not worded in such a way that they can use it. That's the goal of this Act.
And finally, just you'll be aware of Operation Indigo. I understand that there's checkpoints in the morning where people are getting stopped and asked for example, identification as part of that. How would you see Operation Indigo operating differently with these powers? Because again, it's not just about people being liable for deportation, but people who may be deemed to be in breach of their visa conditions. Say that there's a checkpoint in the morning, what would Immigration New Zealand be doing differently?
This is very technical and operational.
Well, it's
it's
a big operation happening.
Yeah, I understand that, but I'm just going to throw to Steve, who's our head of operations.
So, it would be, nothing would change in terms of Operation Indigo, because we still, if a person was not acting in a way that was suspicious or raised the curiosity of the compliance officer, that nothing would change. So if a person tried to flee, for example, or they were hiding in the back of the car, that would trigger the curiosity or the interest of the compliance officer, and then they would move to the next step of the process. The
minister has used examples of sort of workplace visits and house visits, right? But we know in Operation Indigo, as far as I understand, it's also sort of like checkpoints on the road.
I'm not aware of that. But,
okay.
But you.
Well, I have received accounts from lawyers that speak of their lawyers who speak of their clients having been stopped early in the morning while going to work, migrant workers.
Compliance officers don't have the power to stop vehicles.
No,
but there were police.
Okay, well, that's a completely different thing.
So, can I just?
So this is way outside the bill.
Yeah.
This is not. I've not
But compliance officers are with police in those morning stops, aren't they?
So can we come back to the bill, please, Ricardo?
I guess on the broader narrative of going after criminals, I know you've used some examples. One of the commentary I've seen from the public a lot on social media has been this narrative that people who are overstayers are criminals themselves. What would you like to say to the public who sometimes may hire overstayers with an idea of criminality?
Well, if you're overstaying your visa, you are in breach of those visa conditions, and it is time to leave. We'll have a range of things available within immigration to try and regularise people, and that's sort of the first step always, is to try and get people back on a legal pathway. But compliance officers' job is to make sure that people are abiding by the conditions of their visa, and where they are not, they will issue deportation liability notices. There are the job of the Immigration Minister, of course, is to make sure we're protecting New Zealanders. And across
From
all of
what?
this legislation, there are people who've been committing crimes, whether they're overstayers, asylum seekers, or just residents. And we're making sure that in all of those areas that we're sending a very clear message. You are here and we expect you to abide by our laws. And if you don't, then it will be time to leave, unless there are extenuating circumstances, which we still always have backstops for. But we are unapologetically tightening up and making it so that a deportation is more likely to happen if you are a criminal offender and have creating victims of crime.
I think that's a great place to leave it. Thank you.